Good morning and welcome. I'm Kate Bulkley, and you're here for this Media Mastermind keynote. Thank you for coming. Thank you for braving the floods and the other various elements that have been devastating this town. So we're very happy to see you here. I'm a media journalist based in the UK, and as I said, this is a Media Mastermind keynote. And what's interesting about this is we have two Media Masterminds on stage with us today. We have Jimmy Maymann, who's Executive Vice President and President of AOL Content and Consumer Brands. And we also have Shahrzad Rafati. She is founder and CEO of BroadbandTV. And what we're going to do is talk a little bit about their businesses, and then we're going to talk about a project that they're doing together. Shahrzad is the founder, as I said, and CEO of BroadbandTV, and Jimmy runs AOL's consumer brands. They're both entrepreneurs. Shahrzad set up BroadbandTV in 2005, and Jimmy's startup was acquired by AOL in 2012. So I guess you're really a recovering entrepreneur.
Still recovering.
You're still recovering, right. Since the spring of 2013, Shahrzad's company has been majority owned by the European commercial broadcasting group RTL. And it's a big part of that broadcaster's moves into the digital space. And Jimmy now oversees all of AOL's content and consumer brands, and that's relatively new. I think that's only since the last 2 weeks that you've been doing that. So that's Huffington Post, that's Engadget, that's TechCrunch, that's AOL.com, the whole shooting match. You're the Uber AOL dude now.
Yes.
Important guy. Okay.
Very important.
I'll talk to Jimmy a little bit about what his priorities are now with AOL, but first I'm going to start with Shahrzad. So Shahrzad, let's talk a little bit about BroadbandTV, because it's really been a phenomenon. I mean, you have built this business. You've got 5.7 million, I think it is, monthly impressions, and a creator network of 37,000. I mean, that's huge, right?
Right. So with BroadbandTV, we are a media and technology company, and we help content owners and content creators become more successful online. And at the end of the day, our goal is to really be the linchpin at the kind of center of this whole ecosystem. You know, our strategy in combining strong brands, communities, and coupling that in terms of leveraging technology and social and data has really helped us become the fastest growing network in the world and also the second largest video entertainment network.
Now, you said to me, you're building what you call a smart Vice Media, which I thought was great. So tell me, why is BroadbandTV smarter than Vice Media? I mean, what is it that you do that's so different?
That's a really good question. I think when you kind of look back in the 80s and 90s, you know, with Vice and also with Viacom and how they built brands that really mattered to millennials and the next generation of culture builders, really where we are today is an evolution of that. You know, but the only thing that is different is that, you know, you need to build strong brands and communities. You know, content ultimately is king, but you do need to leverage mobile, social, and technology to be able to really kind of get smarter about every aspect of, you know, this whole process, whether it comes down to content creation, content promotion, marketing, distribution, or monetization. And really, technologies are at our core DNA. We built a series of tools and technologies under Viso, and which really helps ultimately gear growth for content owners and creators of any size.
I think that's really interesting. It's what makes you stand out. I mean, you're a computer science major, so you have that technology backbone, and that's really important in this new era. Do you think this is a good moment to maybe talk about the brands that you have, and then we'll run a clip? What would be?
Of course,
yeah.
of course. We operate 5 verticals across BroadbandTV, and we have a very focused strategy, because ultimately what we want to do is we want to be the leader in each of the verticals that we operate. And here, you know, the clip is, you know, as we're going to show it later, it covers the content that we have across each of these verticals, and specifically the ecosystems that we build for the actual creators that are within each of the networks that we operate. So I think it's maybe a good time for us to run the clip.
One thing I think we should do is at the end of it, there's a little bit on Outspeak, right? And Outspeak is the joint venture between you two. So when you see the Outspeak stuff, that's what we're going to talk about at the end. So just so they know, yeah?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Let's roll the clip now.
the drug running through my veins, and a crash right after.
Very exciting. Lots of good stuff there. So RTL's invested in you. Took a big stake, actually, 51% stake. I think it was about, when was that? About 2 years ago or a year ago?
Yeah, 2 years ago.
2 years ago,
June
okay.
20th.
And so they obviously have Fremantle, which is a big content creation company. I know that Vice has a deal with them to actually produce content. Do you have a similar kind of deal that to produce content with Fremantle? I mean, how do you see you working inside of more traditional television space?
Right. I think we've you look back 2.5 years ago when we were looking at this space and we were looking to raise financing. We really felt that RTL Group and Bertelsmann would be the perfect fit in terms of an investor, because we wanted to bridge the gap between digital and traditional. Mm-hmm. And we wanted to bring new revenue opportunities for the creators across our ecosystem. Mm-hmm. You kind of see what we've done with BMG. Yeah, we saw the clip earlier. Right. We have 2 music brands, Opposition and Whimsic. And because we wanted to kind of create a complete ecosystem in serving the creators, we formed a partnership with BMG to be able to have a complete end-to-end solution.
And of course, BMG is part of Bertelsmann, which is part of RTL.
And as it relates to specifically Fremantle and RTL Group, I mean, we work with them in many different ways. I think when you look at BroadbandTV, we have a library of 11.3 million videos, and we deploy 420,000 videos across our network every month. And this goes from originals, licensed content, and also influencer content. Okay. We produce 500 originals every month, and this goes from magazine shows to really complicated animations profitably. And with Fremantle, we have a similar deal where we actually, which we announced about a year ago, in terms of producing content, which we call it leveraging smart entertainment methodology across both entertainment, gaming, and music verticals, which are, again, goes back to having that focused strategy within the verticals that we operate.
So the idea is that you're trying to bring the 2 worlds together, or are they really distinct still?
I think at the end of the day, we want to create a seamless experience across digital and traditional. I think when you look at consumption trends with mobile and social being the 2 really key factors, what we want to do ultimately is we want to create strong brands and communities that really are following the content and they're consuming it across many different platforms, and whether if it's traditional or digital. Yeah. I think ultimately that becomes a seamless process if you fast forward 5 years from now.
So with the thing that with Vice Media, I thought was really interesting, it's Munchies is the one that they work on with them, and it's a 70-30 revenue split in Vice's favor. Are you going to have that kind of revenue split with on your
I think
content?
what we want to do is we want to take a smarter approach, because when you look at Vice is only about owned and operated, and it's only about their brands. What we have to understand is that owned and operated can no longer be the end game. It's part of the game, because social and mobile they've made such an important impact in terms of you creating a strong syndicated network. And I think those margins are going to be very different when you're looking at the creators' channels versus your own and operated versus originals that you produce across your own and operated. Obviously, if it's content that we produce, we own 100% of it in terms of the revenue opportunity associated with that. So I think it's about having this pyramid where you have the network, you have the hubs, the O&O, and obviously you have the originals at the top. And the margins are different across each of these different tiers. And I think in order for you to have a very strong, strategy is about, really connecting, obviously the audience across the fan-uploaded content, across owned and operated and originals.
Okay. Quick question. What are your international ambitions? Now you've got, I think it was earlier this year, you bought a Mumbai-based, is it Yoboho? Is that how you pronounce it?
That is correct,
Yoboho. Yoboho, which is a kid-focused MCN, right? And you're already into kids. So is this a signal that you're trying to make more international content?
For sure, I think when you look at it, we're the second largest video entertainment network in the world, but we are also #1 in Latin America and Brazil. Mm-hmm. So we run the largest Portuguese network, Spanish network. We operate in France, in Germany, obviously in India, in Japan, also in Russia and Korea. So we definitely do have an international network, and the goal is for us, as we've kind of built this strong ecosystem and leveraging RTL's help to build the strongest international international global network. I think when you look at this day and age, especially with digital, we really need to understand that global, social, and mobile are 3 key factors that we need to pay attention to. So I think it's definitely international is a big part of our strategy. It has been a big part of our strategy, and we continue to obviously building our network in new markets. And I think as it relates to Yoboho, I think this is a great company. With Hoopla Kids, they operate the largest kids network. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to kind of create again a strong ecosystem within the kids and family network. And they already figured out how to create a smart entertainment within the kids vertical. They built that trust with the kids, with the parents, through a series of IP that they had. And what we wanted to do is we wanted to add our expertise in building a network to their and complement it with respect to what they brought to the table to bring to really create the next Disney.
The next Disney. Ooh, there's an aspiration for you. Is Guillaume Depoche in the audience? The next Disney. Did you hear that? Fantastic. Okay. Let's go to Jimmy now. Jimmy, AOL, you oversee it all now, which, as I said before, which is really interesting. It's a big responsibility, but it's also a really big palette to work on. One question, though, just to get us started. AOL was bought by Verizon, right? $4.4 billion deal. It was in June. They're a phone company, a mobile company. How is that changing what you want to do content-wise? I mean, at one point, they were even saying if the deal wasn't going to get done unless they got rid of the content businesses. So, I mean, has this changed what you're doing at AOL Content?
No, I don't think it's changed what we're doing. It's accelerated what we're doing.
Okay.
I think in many ways, as Shahrzad also touched on before, mobile. For a lot of time we've talked about mobile as the second screen, and for most of our audiences today, it's the first screen. And obviously, by having Verizon coming in and acquiring AOL, we obviously need to accelerate, our shift into mobile, and it's a shift that's happening at a tremendous pace. As you mentioned, I just spent 3 years as CEO of HuffPost.
That's right.
And over the last 18 months that I was there, we went from 18% of our audience being on mobile devices to 70%, in 18 months.
Wow.
And obviously,
so 18 to 70.
18 to 70%.
Wow, that's a lot.
And that's what I'm talking about. That shift, has huge implications on how you do business. And I think that's also why when Verizon looked at us, they're obviously seeing that the audiences are moving to mobile devices. They want to consume more content on mobile devices. And to that end, obviously, we need to create content that fits that audience. And I think that's where this becomes really interesting. Over the last 5 years, AOL has really focused on the video side of the business, invested heavily in it. We're doing everything from obviously 6 seconds whining things to 8 hours of live streaming every day, which we're doing with Huffington Post Live, which is a live streaming news show that is running, right? So I think AOL was already, invested in video. What we're doing now is we need to accelerate even more because, as I said, the audience is there. They want more video. I think if I look across our properties right now, around 20% of what we serve up is a video unit. So 20% of what people are seeing on our sites is video. And I think in general, if you look at how people consume content in the US right now, a third of what they do when they log on to the internet or the mobile phones is watching online video content. So if you only at 20%, we are under-indexing.
That's not enough.
That's not enough. So we need to do more, and we need to produce more original content, and we'll do that. But we also need to license content, which we're doing now. We also need to co-produce.
So you have the deeper pockets of Verizon. That helps.
That helps. It's great to have people that can, allow us to go in and license content that honestly we wouldn't have been able to do before because we couldn't write those checks.
So what are the budgets now? I mean, have you got just a huge budget now?
With the right idea, I don't think there is a limit. That's obviously a great thing of having someone like that in the back. So I think that's important. And I said also co-producing is something we want to do more. And then also, we'll talk a little bit about it later. The stuff about user-generated content, right? And I think Discovery platform platforms that we're seeing on YouTube and the MCNs was built on the back of, I think is very important from that perspective. Finding the best user-generated content, and I think also if you look at it, how things has changed. Over the last couple of years, we're now seeing YouTube stars that have bigger social followings than the traditional stars that we grew up with, and obviously they have big followings, but also a huge ripple effect on kind of whatever they support, whatever they do, will make or break. And I think we as programmers and of people that are publishing things need to kind of find out how that fits in our ecosystem.
So are you going to become a talent manager as well? Because a lot of these are kids. They don't really know how to...
Talent manager, I don't know if I want to be a talent manager. I think there's probably people out there that are better at doing that.
Right.
But I definitely want these type of personalities and people to come onto our platforms and work with the content they have, and even work with us on content.
Right. Now you have a clip. Should we run that now, or should we talk about live first?
No,
run the clip now.
Run the clip.
Okay. So you want to cue it up, or this is?
Let's have a look at some of the things we're doing. As I said, everything from 6 seconds to 8 hours of show.
Okay. Run the clip, please.
Second. Oh, wow.
I need the level of competition to be higher.
Groundbreaking stuff.
Bill, you have a microphone. This is show business.
Thank you so much.
This is the man. A leprechaun appears out of nowhere and it beats your shin with a bat.
AOL is bigger and better and stronger than they've ever been.
It's nice to get an endorsement from Jerry Seinfeld, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
He's cool.
He's cool. So talk a little bit about the live portion, because you've launched something just last week, I think, in New York at Advertising Week, live on AOL.
Yeah.
What's this big preoccupation with live? I mean, those of us in the TV business know that live is very important because it keeps audiences. If it's big sports or big entertainment shows, what's your idea of live?
No, and I think that's right. And I think, obviously, as I said, we're doing live every day. We're doing 8 hours of live with HuffPost Live. But it's really not that kind of live. It's really those big live events where, it's still things that you need to see in real time. Because, as I said before, social becomes really important. And obviously, that's one of the things that we're faced with as an industry, is that people are moving away from watching live TV, because they're binge watching, they're cord cutters, they're watching, TV
on demand.
On demand, they're watching TV the way they want. But there are events that if you're not there live, it doesn't really make any sense, and you can't be part of the conversation. And I think that thing of being part of the conversation is very important. So for us, obviously, social media is very important, and we can build whole communities around those events. So as you saw there, the thing we've done over the last 2 weeks is Rock in Rio, where we did 50 hours of live streaming content with a lot of content and a lot of participation by the audience, right? And I think that's also the interesting part right now. As technology evolves, you're seeing Meerkat, you're seeing Periscope. It actually means that people that are at the events, there's interesting things happening on the side. So it's not only about the live stream; it's also kind of what happens in the community around it, and how do you take that and curate that in an interesting way so it adds value to our live stream.
Is that, how do you make money on that? In other words, do you find that the advertisers love that because it is live streamed and they can build, branded content propositions around it, or do they just want to advertise in it, or where's the money? I get that it's big and you can socialize it, so you get an audience. How do you make it work financially?
to your point, I think one of the things that obviously is important these days is to find ways of integrating it in, and not just being a post-roll or pre-roll. That's obviously not a great user experience. To your point, the advertisers where obviously these type of events resonate with the audiences they have, we try to find intelligent ways of integrating them in those events, in those live streams. And I think in many ways sometimes it's also as simple as really going back to the soap operas, what they were, right? It's brought to you by whoever, but at least the audience will accept that as long as it's not interfering in the middle of a live stream or something.
True. So Shahrzad, let's talk together now about how this online video space is different. What's interesting to me is to think, okay, we've looked at YouTube. It was an advertising-funded platform. You've already talked a little bit about how it's not just about owned and operated, it's about being out there in the ecosphere and doing things all over the place. How do you actually make this work? I think this is something that the audience would be interested in, because coming from more traditional TV space, they're thinking, how do we make this work? How does it work financially? How does it work as a business?
I think this is a really, I think it's a very good question, because a lot of times, we deal with traditional players that are either on digital or trying to get on digital and to get traction on digital. And really, we need to kind of think about 4 key factors here. I think, the first thing that, kind of traditional media companies can learn from what has really worked for for digital players is really cost-effective premium content models. And I think there are different ways that you can actually achieve this. Whether if it's, you kind of look at, Maker's, Disney's acquisition of Maker, this was not just about, getting in front of millennials, but it was about having access to a content engine that is actually really working, and it's, a lot more scalable. The second is like having a digital-first, model in mind, right? When you're programming for obviously the millennials, you need to actually think about your content sitting on digital first. And I think, once, again, here we talked about YouTubers and influencers, they really can help you tap into their audience, and collaborating with them is actually very smart. And I think once you actually have the content engine figured out, the other thing that we need to think about is customer optimization. So traditional media companies, they need to kind of learn from Googles and Facebooks of the world that really took advantage of this interactivity. We talk about mobile and how mobile is such an important part of future of video. Yeah. So I think, they need to understand that they can no longer be just media companies. They need to become media and technology companies, right? And I think to add to that, really monetization is a third factor. You need to really think about, we talk about, digital is global. And AVOD and SVOD is, even though they're the fundamental ways where you can monetize content, you really need to think about other ways, other methods of monetization. And here, m-commerce is very much so something that we are looking at very closely. You look at, it was an industry that was only $200 billion in 2014, and is growing to be a $600 billion market by 2018. So we really need to think about other methods of monetization at scale, like at BroadbandTV. This year we launched 750 stores, and this was not just for our content, it was also for our creators' content.
Stores.
And IP, exactly.
So like selling stuff.
Exactly.
Like mugs and T-shirts, or
all sorts of things. Like we have 350 different products that we sell across all the different stores.
You have kids brands, so you can sell fluffy toys and games and things like that.
For all of our brands. And I think ultimately it also comes down to converged operating models. I think, when you're in a day and age where things move so quickly at such a fast pace, what I tell actually the traditional media players that, you really need to think horizontally. And when I say thinking horizontally, I'm not just talking about your shared services like finance and, operations. We're talking about content creation, marketing, monetization. In order for you to be really lean, agile, and nimble, you really need to kind of think horizontally, because if a concept is working in one territory, you need to be able to quickly take that across the board. So, and if you do leverage these 4, I think, key factors, then you can be successful.
You got a business.
If you have good content,
I can tell you're in the middle of an MBA program. I can tell. Because you've got it down. These are the 4 things, we're going to do it. Yeah.
Yeah, this is a question we get asked all the time.
Exactly.
So I think it's really important, because all those factors are important. So,
let's talk a little bit about Outspeak, because we're running out of time here. So I want to get to that. And if we can weave in social and how important that is, that would be good too. But Jimmy, let me just come to you to start. So Outspeak is this partnership. You've put it together. I think in June.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's relatively new. Next Generation Online Video Journalism Network. Okay, now forgive me, but isn't Vice News already doing this? What's going to be different about Outspeak?
No, you're right. Vice Media is doing things in this space as well. But I think what's different here is really the contributor part, right? It's really the citizen journalism part, which Vice is not really doing to an extreme extent. And I think that's also something that we need to think about as more traditional players. Is that the whole contributor part, the whole media has been democratized, but traditional media hasn't really accepted that it's been democratized. So how do we play with that? How do we leverage and use that? On any given day, there's every hour there's 400 every minute, there's 400 hours of YouTube content uploaded, right? And
it's a lot.
And 80% of all the content out there right now on the internet is created by people that are sitting behind the screen, right? So obviously we need to find a way of letting them be part of the conversation. I'm not saying everyone should have a voice, because obviously the quality is not there. But by doing stuff like Outspeak, we will it will be in a sense also a talent discovery platform, right? It will be a way to elevate the best to the top and give them a voice across our owned and operated, right? Because of course there are things that will sit on the YouTube channel that we've built together, and then we will elevate the best and curate it across the rest of our properties. And this for us is really meaningful, because again, even if I wanted to, with the amount of content that I will need in order to be relevant to this new digital audience, I wouldn't be able, I can't produce all that content on my own, and I can't buy all of that content. I need, for the model to work, for us to be a profitable, viable business, you need to find a way of having some sort of user-generated content as part of your model. That's at least what we believe in.
Okay. It's interesting because, news is one of those really sticky wickets, because it's sort of always like, you don't want to have sort of screechy people that, don't have a...
You're right.
It's not, it's not journalism, it's
not
more opinion.
You're right.
So
and that's exactly right. But let me give you one example, right? Which basically I think changed the way we look at media was Boston bombing, right? We all ran with a guy that stood with his iPhone and has shot the footage there, right?
Yeah.
That was, it was... In many
that
ways,
was the visceral moment.
That was the visceral moment, right? Whereas before that moment, we always waited on, the CNNs of the world to go there with all the big cameras and the anchor person standing in front of the event. Now we can obviously, because we won't have TV cameras everywhere at every time, but we actually do, right? If we empower those people that are there, we will actually be able to report things faster. And to your point, of course, it's not that you want people you don't know to, write a commentary and things that you don't know to be true. So there needs to be a validation. But at that point in time, and with location-based service, obviously you knew it was from that place. So you could validate it very fast.
Shahrzad, why work with them? I mean, why with HuffPo? Why BroadbandTV and HuffPo together?
So I think really what was very interesting for us was that we know how to create a strong video network, and when we looked at Huffington Post, they had a strong brand, they had strong social presence, they have a strong, obviously, O&O, and what we wanted to do is we wanted to combine the hundreds of thousands of bloggers that they had with tens of thousands of creators to create the citizen journalism network, not just to create great content and have access to talent, but to also create the most engaging format, to combine the best stories and articles with the best premium video content to create the most engaged experience. And that is why we change news as we know it in the digital age, because the Vice News of the world, they actually utilize a push model. And I think here what we're doing is we're really building a strong ecosystem for journalism. And more importantly, what we wanted to do is we wanted to show the world that the millennials do care. And you can actually educate millennials and activate their audiences to speak about world topics that impacts all of us in this world. So that's what's so exciting about it.
I mean, I could ask you more questions about it, but I can see the red lights on our screen, so I think we have to draw it to a close. Really interesting. I think the partnership will be very interesting to see how you work together. Good luck, Jimmy, being the Uber AOL content guy. Good luck with your MBA and also, with what you're doing with your company. It sounds very exciting. So before we thank our two panelists, I just want to remind you that we have another Media Mastermind keynote happening in here in about 10 minutes with George Strompoulos. He is the Fullscreen CEO and founder. So if you'd like to stay for that, please do. But before that, please join me in giving a very warm thank you to Shahrzad Rafati and Jimmy Maymann.
Thank you.
Thank you.